TheFreeRotation podcast.
All right, welcome to the Free Rotation podcast. I am Chris. We are joined here this morning with Becky.
Hi, guys.
Angie.
Hello.
And Mr. Bobby.
I am not hungover. I'm happy.
I feel like this is Bobby's thing every episode is like, let me confirm with you whether I'm hungover today.
But he actually does look happy. Look at his eyes. He's got happy eyes.
I met a pretty lady, so I'm very happy.
Ooh.
He's got the sparkle kawaii
I thought you were the pretty
eyes.
lady.
She's prettier than me.
Oh, okay.
And she's only 5 foot, so it's
Okay.
interesting.
A little pretty lady.
Yes.
Well, speaking of pretty ladies, Chris, what are we talking about today?
So today we're going to get into more depth about the MK Ultra project, about some of the constituents, people that were involved. Specifically, we're going to talk about Dr. Jolly West today, and then an incident that occurred in the 50s at Lackland Air Force Base in Texas, involving a gentleman named Jimmy Shaver.
Okay. You know, just to preface this, when you kept saying Jolly West, I really could not picture a guy named Jolly West being part of MK Ultra, but I guess that's a good misnomer.
Sure, Jolly was his nickname. His actual real name was Louis Jolyon West.
That's even worse.
So they just called him Jolly. Because he was a chubby dude, and he apparently had a happy, kind of go-lucky demeanor. So
yeah,
people,
while he's torturing you, like
yeah.
There's a thing on YouTube of him talking about Scientology. If you're interested,
There is.
It's interesting. Oh yeah, he has shit to say about Scientology.
Oh God.
It's like, you want to talk about it?
Well, I mean, he was
Yeah.
super interested in all psychiatric kind of aspects and what you could accomplish with brainwashing, and so he's gonna like a lot of the. He was real big into cults. It was just his jam, because that's what he spent his entire life doing after, even probably before the military. And I mean, this is just what he did.
Oh God.
I'll be honest. If I were just slightly different, I could be him easily. I'm so fascinated, but I don't know if I could destroy people the way he did.
That's where I draw the line. As
Yeah.
I'm interested in this stuff, but you're really affecting people's lives.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
you have to be able to separate the fact that these are human beings to be able to do these things to them. You have to be like, okay, well, this is test experiment B.
Yeah.
And
One of the comments was, what exactly were some of the experiments? So when we talked about the experiments in mental hospitals, and it wasn't even mental hospital, when we mentioned the sleep room, people would be put in the sleep room and then subjected to electroshock 23 times a day. It literally fried their brain and took them all the way back to infancy so they could rebuild them as people. This is what we're talking about.
Jolly West is, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time on him because he's involved with a lot of the constituents we know about, because a lot of his records are the ones that were covered for the MK Ultra stuff. It's just almost everything else was destroyed. So we know he's involved. We know he communicated with Sidney Gottlieb. I'm trying to put this as linear as I can, so it's easy to follow, but it's really difficult to follow because
it's all circles.
Well, it's circles, and there's a million different people involved who you've never heard of, and there are a million different programs that we don't even know all the programs.
Right.
We know some of them and kind of what some of them did.
Yeah.
So it's really tough to follow and create like a...
When I think of MK Ultra, I think of a fractal. Like, you don't
Sure.
know where it began
Yeah.
or ends, and it's just...
Well, I like this, the metaphor you used last episode, that it's like a puzzle, a big puzzle, and you might have like some pieces here, some pieces figured out, but there's like holes
There are.
everywhere you look. So I think that's a good way to describe it. So that's why I think it's hard to do linear. And you might, listen, I don't know, like I said, I don't know a lot about it, but I understand why it might be harder to do linear, because you don't know exactly where it begins or ends.
Yeah.
The best I think we can do is chronological from what we have. And even then, you don't know. There's just huge gaps because so much stuff was destroyed on behalf of the CIA once they found out about, once it got made public. They destroyed so many files and so much of everything that it's just tough to find real factual information. It's not internet darkroom garbage where everybody's like, oh, MK Ultra did X, Y, Z. I'm like, there's no proof of that whatsoever, so you can't speak on that. Like,
MK Ultra came to my house and pooped in my toilet.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
that's the
Oh,
problem.
that was me.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah.
So we have Dr. Louis West. We'll call him Jolly because everybody called him Jolly. Born October 6, 1924 in Brooklyn. He got his degree in medicine from the University of Minnesota. He did his psychiatry residency at Cornell. He was already interested, even before the military, he was interested in medical, specifically psychiatry, specifically controlling people. That's just what his interest was. World War II, he joined the Air Force. He enlisted. Apparently, because of his college, he got to be an officer. Made it up to a colonel.
Sounds very basic so far.
Yeah, everything's super normal.
Yeah.
He's a doctor, enlisted to fight the war, and I think he actually went in 42.
Yeah.
And then made it to colonel by 45.
Okay.
War's over, rock and roll.
Yeah.
And a lot of this we need to put in reference to the time frame, because this all goes on 40s, 50s, 60s. Everything's not like it is now. Things
Right.
were way different. Black people still couldn't use restaurants with white people. Like, this is the world we were living in.
Well, and and I think it's also with anything like this, looking at it in a historical context is the most important way to look at stuff like this. While I think that our government does do stuff like this now, you have to think about why they were doing it at the time it was happening.
Yeah.
There was a very real fear that the Soviets were ahead of us in brainwashing techniques.
Sure.
And also keep in mind, people trusted their doctors and their government implicitly.
Yeah.
If your doctor said, oh, you like the lady who they did take back to infancy, she had depression. Like, I think it was like a postpartum.
Yeah, she had
type
postpartum.
thing. And then he's like, oh, you're schizophrenic. You got to go here to the sleep room.
Right. And somebody like this guy, he's probably the perfect idealistic patriot that people are going to be looking at to trust in the
Well,
first
and he
place.
looks like Santa Claus.
He does.
He does.
He everybody trusted him. Everybody liked him. That's just until there's a point where they stop trusting him and liking him.
Gotcha.
That happens. But not, these are more, the people that stop trusting him aren't the government people. They're more like common, everyday, like, something ain't right.
Yeah, something ain't right.
Because these stories are going to get out. And like the guys in the military who help us find a cure for the common cold, and then you're subjected to
Whatever.
sarin gas.
Yeah.
What are the lethal doses?
Yeah.
You did what to me?
Yeah. No, there's no joke. So he made it to colonel, went to, after the war was over, basically retired and went to do his residency at University of Cornell. In 1952, during the Korean, or right after the Korean War, some American pilots came back and said that they had used biological warfare on the Korean countryside. This is very illegal. It was against the Geneva Convention. They announced this on national radio. Everyone heard them. It looked bad for the government. It looked bad for the military because we're not supposed to do these things.
Right.
This was after World War I and II when they started using mustard gas and Cyclone B, and we had said that using biological warfare and spraying gases were against human rights and against even the rules of war. It's just wrong. We're not going to do that. And we're still, again, this is the 50s. We're still the shining city on the hill that is America. We're supposed to be the leaders. If we don't follow the Geneva Convention, no one else is going
No
to.
one else
I mean,
is,
that's just
yeah.
what it is. So when these pilots admitted this, the U.S. government came out and said, hey, clearly these prisoners had been brainwashed because they had been prisoners of war before they were released. We need to deprogram and reprogram them. Dr. West was one of the scientists that was involved in this, in the deprogramming and reprogramming. And this is in 52. So this is, I mean, literally 7 years after World War II. They said brainwash, that the word brainwash didn't exist in the English language until 1950, until the government used it. It just wasn't a word. It wasn't a thing. But we were so scared that chemicals and drugs were able to make our soldiers rebel against America and American ideals. So we needed a phrase that would stand up to that.
Yeah.
So brainwashing is what they chose on.
Yeah. Same in Manchurian Candidate.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the Manchurian Candidate, so if you're familiar with that, it's where basically it came out during the time that MKUltra was actually publicized. It was a story of them basically creating the perfect
Sleeper agent.
assassin.
Yeah, assassin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He needed, in Manchurian Candidate, they needed code words, and he had a handler, and I'm not sure that's how what MKUltra was trying to do works. I don't think there are code words. I think
Yeah.
you either are implanted with this knowledge, ability, desire to
Like
do whatever.
a time bomb.
Yeah,
Tick,
it's
tick.
just in there, whether you know it or not. I don't think you need Bobby coming up to you and saying cherry pie, swans fly south, and then
Yeah.
you become a killer. I don't think it works. I don't think it's like a trigger like that. I think it's just something in your brain that you just have to do. It's just this. It's like breathing or whatever. You just it's there. You have to have it. So he is part of the Dr. West is part of the scientists that are tasked to deprogram these pilots that have admitted to using biological warfare. It never says how long it took to deprogram them, but Jolly West comes out and says it's completely successful. He deprogrammed 56 of the officers who all recounted their stories, and then they were all basically just folded back into Western society. I don't know their names. I'm not sure anybody knows their names
Yeah.
anymore. I don't know if there are records of it. I can't find them because I would love to message these people and be like, hey, what's up? But again,
Yeah.
this is the Korean War, early 50s. They may be long gone by now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they probably had aliases that protected them in the first place.
Well, especially when they were being deprogrammed.
right.
You're not going to know their real name because then people are going to come looking. All you know is, unless you're related to them, Mr. Smith, I haven't seen him in 3 weeks.
Right.
Like, I mean, even if you're on base with him, like he's just been gone.
Yeah.
No one's going to know because that's how this operates. He deprograms 56 of them, says they all recant their stories, get folded back into civilization. He gets noticed by Sidney Gottlieb. Sidney Gottlieb is a member of the CIA. He is with the Technical Services Division. He is actually a poison specialist with the CIA's Technical Services Division, and MK Ultra was all run under the CIA's Technical Services header. I mean, that's just what this was. Sidney Gottlieb he's a bad person.
Yeah.
His nickname, even amongst the agents, they called him the Dark Sorcerer.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to do some fucked up shit to get to that kind of nickname.
And in the 50s, like, he was a bad person.
yeah.
He sees what Jolly does and basically gives him permission to try to start running some programs. Mostly the brainwashing, counter-brainwashing, implementation of false memory, erasing real memory, and just lets him go wild.
So I guess Jolly West initially started out kind of like, once again, we talk about the road to hell is paved with good intentions. They're trying to help these people.
Although I'm pretty sure he knew.
So
Yeah.
here's the thing. I don't think they were helping him. I 100% believe these pilots
It was
really
a cover-up.
They really did spray the Korean countryside with biological warfare because
Right.
I don't put that across. Any army will do that. That's
Right.
whatever. I think that what they did was convince them that they didn't via whatever hypnosis, sodium pentothal, LSD, whatever they had to do.
He probably thought he was doing good for the country at the time. Like, we're going to...
I don't think he was doing good. I think even then,
I think he's just
I
had a
think-
curiosity
yes.
for evil. Yeah.
I don't think it was evil. I think he wanted to know: can you control a living human being?
Yeah.
However,
Yeah.
by whatever means necessary, is it possible and can we do it? And is there a program I can implement that will give someone false memories, that will take away their real memories, that will make them believe something that they don't?
And I'm sure when Sidney talked to him, he was like, hey, we've already had these programs in place, and look what we've done with sonar with the Navy and electromagnetic impulses, and it's been successful.
Yes. So I think Sidney saw in him, again, I don't think it's a good or evil thing. I think Dr. Gottlieb saw
Curiosity.
Yes.
Yeah.
The willingness to do whatever he needed to do to prove this one way or the other without caring about human beings or how this affected their lives or, I mean, it's just a lack of conscience. Scientific curiosity with no restraint.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like you see that a lot with a lot of these people is it's less about the humanity side of anything, but more like what can I further in science as an experiment. Like we are not humans, we are just the experiment to
Yes.
get you there.
But I think to do this to people, you have to look at them that way.
Right.
I don't think I can look at Bobby and be like, hey, well, I'm going to die. I'm going to put bleach in his eyes and see if they turn blue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't do that if I look at him as a human being.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I have empathy as another human being.
Yeah.
You have to be like, this is test subject B. Let's see if we can change his eyes some colors.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is, even the Nazis, this is what they did. They would inject bleach. They would cut people up. And it's because they looked at Jewish people as subhuman. Because you can't look at someone as an equal and do this to
Right.
them. It's just not possible. You either have to be an actual sociopath or you can't do it.
Right.
Because it's just not, it sucks. So it's either sociopathy or just not caring. And it's got to be the not caring because I don't think Jolly West was a sociopath or a psychopath. I think it was just honestly scientific curiosity unbound by restraints.
Yeah.
And there's actually a memo that he sent to Sidney Gottlieb at one point where he literally asks him for carte blanche to do whatever he wants. And Gottlieb's like, awesome, we've been looking for somebody like you for a while. I'm glad you understand what we need. And he asked him, he's like, we need to try this in hospitals, prisons, schools, and then on military personnel. and then other places with unwitting participants.
And we kind of discussed this before the podcast started, is that what do you do when you have a lack of morality or a lack of law or a lack of anybody to answer to?
Yes.
Like if you're given full freedom to do whatever you want.
You have infinite money,
Yep.
infinite of an infinite of the drugs you want and time and people that you can do whatever you want to. And no matter what happens, it'll either be covered up or no one will believe
Right.
it ever happened.
You have there's no.
There is no authority.
Exactly.
You're it. You're the
Yeah.
authority. Whatever you decide goes, and you're basically the god of this whole thing, this whole program.
You know what? I've kind of wondered if what we suspect the government of doing with children. If we do know from some documents recovered that children were used to trap politicians into approval, financial support and stuff. I think, is this where it started? And they just kept the program?
I think this has been going on forever. I think they've just got better at it.
Mm-hmm.
Go a little off topic here, but I really do believe Epstein was I don't know what branch of the government. I think he was allowed to do what he did because he got dirt on famous people.
Yeah.
And cool.
Good
As
old
long as he's
honeypot.
working with us, he's not working against
Yeah.
us. And I think that's part of why he was allowed to
Yeah.
do what he did for so long.
And then when he became a liability,
Yeah, it's just game over.
yeah, that's it for
Yeah,
you.
even with the threat of the Dead Man Switch releasing everything, even when he supposedly died, nothing was released. Mm-hmm. When they arrested Ghislaine Maxwell, nothing's been released. No one knows exactly what happened. All you have are the flight manifests, and that's kind of it, and the stories from the girls who were abused. So we have to take, and it's the same thing with MK Ultra. We have to take their stories about what happened to them, and if you choose to believe them, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
But we know Epstein was arrested at least twice. No, he was put in jail, but he was also allowed to leave whenever he wanted and kind of had his own wing of the jail. And
Yeah.
he was arrested on paper, but that's kind of it. He didn't have to serve any real time.
Right.
He wasn't locked away from anything. He could leave whenever he wanted. Who has this ability? It has to be the government on your side.
Especially
Nothing else
since
makes
the
sense.
Australian government was after him hardcore.
Yes.
The Australian government wants him and Prince Andrew
Badly.
badly.
Yes. But again, it's protection from somewhere.
Yeah. And who can stand up to a government?
Another government.
Yeah,
A
exactly.
stronger government.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think, like, the honeypot's been going on since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
I mean, it just is what it is. It works.
Yeah.
It sucks and it's awful to do to people, but man, is it not effective.
Well, and the thing you think about is, like, in a pop culture reference, is it's like, who watches the Watchmen?
Yeah.
Who watches the government? Like, if you have nobody being authoritative over somebody who's doing something like this, and they say, hey, go for it, there you go.
Well, it's not even who watches the government at this point, because these guys are operating outside the boundaries of even the rules of the government.
Exactly.
They're operating completely, there are no
Yeah,
restraints.
even the government was shocked.
Yeah,
Like,
they
you
didn't
did
know.
What?
I mean, when Alan Dulles left the CIA and it was taken over by, what was his name? Whatever, the CIA operator after Dulles.
Yeah.
He didn't know about MK Ultra for 2 years. When the paperwork came out, he's like, destroy everything. Because apparently he may have known the scope of all of this.
Right.
And that's when all the paperwork was destroyed. When he found out, he's like, nope, the U.S. cannot know about this. And destroyed
Oh,
it.
man.
I was thinking about something you just said about, the honeypots go back to the beginning of time. And you think about, Samson and Delilah. She,
All of it.
in the Bible, if that's what you believe in.
Xerxes.
Yeah.
When Xerxes took over the whole, what was known of Earth back then, he did it not necessarily only through force. He also offered their leaders sex and gold and jewels to get them on his side, and then they had to do, once you're in, you're in.
Right.
It just is what it is.
That's why if you read anything about, like, Persian culture, especially when it was dominating over different countries or different regions, a lot of times he would let people keep what they had, let them do what they want, but here's some money, here's working it. You worked it with them instead of just being a dominant force over them and forcing them to do what you wanted.
So here's the thing. If you force people to do what you want, they will rebel.
Right.
If you let them do what they want, but they're still beholden to you, they will fight for you.
Right.
It's the mindset of human beings.
Well, it's like, what's going to be the lesser of two evils? The guy who comes in like Genghis Khan and just like pillages and burns and takes your stuff? Or the guy who comes in and says, you're going to keep everything, but
when we need you
go
to fight.
to war, you got to go to war, but we will make sure you're paid. We make sure your people are good. We are protected.
Absolutely.
You attract a lot more flies with honey than with vinegar.
Exactly.
Well, and it's there's also a way to speak to people and convince them. So if you're, I don't know, if you're doing dishes already and your significant other comes in there and tells you, hey, you need to wash those dishes, your natural instinct is to get pissed off.
Yeah.
It's the dumbest thing in the world, but it's how
Right.
people are wired.
Yeah.
If someone tells you to do something you're already doing, you're going to get angry
Yeah.
because you're already doing it. So telling somebody what they have to do without offering an incentive really creates it's just friction, and people don't want to do it. So you give them the incentive, which is the honeypot. Be it Epstein with kids and sex, and again, it's uninhibited.
Yeah.
right.
He's protected
Whatever
by
you want to do, here you go.
yeah,
Right.
he's protected by whatever is protecting him, be it the CIA, the FBI, the DIA, the DSS. I don't know.
That sounds exactly like Jolly West is like, you want all the scientific curiosity, we will give you whatever you need.
Yes.
Do what you want, get us some results, and whatever.
Absolutely.
That's kind of scary.
It is terrifying.
Yep.
And supposedly, Sidney Gottlieb, who was the poison technician for the Technical Service Division of MK Ultra, was his handler. That is Jolly West. He is basically a psychiatrist who is super interested in LSD and super interested in mind control, brainwashing techniques, memory, and he's been given basically unlimited resources and power, and he can do whatever he wants to whomever he wants by the government. I mean, the CIA has told him, do what you got to do. Have fun.
And he was paid an enormous amount of money for the time.
He was.
Like a $600,000 salary.
Yes.
Oh, shit.
Yeah,
well,
they-
in current times. At the time, it was like $69,000
Yeah.
a year, but it
They were giving him $500,000 a year to do
was
whatever he wanted.
incredible.
I
And-
mean, I hate to say this, but I think a lot of people would probably do the same thing. Hey, figure out how to
your
brainwash people.
curiosity and thirst for knowledge is uninhibited.
Yeah. You have that's just his salary. That's not saying.
He didn't get stipends and stuff like that.
Well, not only that, but if he needed 20 gallons of LSD, the CIA had hired a company in, I think, Indiana to synthesize the Swedish LSD that they synthesized back in 38, 39. So now they had an unlimited supply. And I say unlimited, the stories are 10,000 gallons a day is what they were making.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's bananas numbers. So he had infinite money, an unwitting population of people that he could test on whenever and however he felt like, and backed by the government.
Like in restaurants.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just, I'm going to eat my meatloaf and, oh, my spiked drink.
And, I mean, they literally just told him, figure this out. I mean, at this point, he is working. The story is he went to the University of Oklahoma, started working there, told the University of Oklahoma he was not working for the government anymore. He was funded by a CIA. It was a CIA fund, like slush fund account that was funding his research at the University of Oklahoma. So he's at the school acting like he's working on psychiatry when in fact he's testing on students and setting up shop. We're going to go to Jimmy Shaver. And Jolly West will come up repeatedly with these MK Ultra people. With the one we're going to talk about today, Jimmy Shaver, he comes up with Jack Ruby, he comes up with Charles Manson, he comes up, and I think it's because he is basically the leader of the mind control / brainwashing / changing their tendencies, making nonviolent people violent, making violent people nonviolent. I think he's the one that understands whatever process it is, he knows how to do it, and I'm not sure he tells anybody else ever how to do it. I think he keeps the actual process to himself.
Yeah.
Whatever specific order of chemicals and hypnosis and
Electroshock therapy.
yeah, whatever it is,
Yeah.
I don't think he ever tells anybody because they keep letting him do his thing without anyone else being able to,
Right.
as best we can tell, do it.
Yeah.
It's just
He'll
him.
come out and say it was successful. And it's like, what did you do?
Yeah.
But I don't think the people he worked for cared what he did.
And I
as
don't
long as
think
he
you
got
didn't want to
results.
also know, like, ignorance is bliss almost.
I think I think the way he looked at it, I mean, he's not stupid. This is a smart man. And if you have the recipe to brainwash someone, to erase their real memories and implant false ones, if you tell them this recipe, what's to stop them from doing it to you?
Right.
Like, at that point, it's just
Yeah.
it's saving himself.
Well, and it makes you indispensable. Like there's
Absolutely.
no
You're the only person that can do it.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
no reason to replace you if you start bucking whatever they're telling
You're
you
not
to
going
do.
to kill me because I'm the only one who knows how to do this.
Right.
Well, it's that dumb, stupid rule that 3 people can keep a secret if 2 of them are dead.
Yeah.
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 You don't need, because again, he's working for the government, but he is not in the government.
Yeah.
Like, he's kind of like a freelancer that's
Yeah.
just been given permission to do whatever the hell he wants.
As long as you give us your results.
Absolutely, that's all they
Yeah.
care about. So you can't, as a freelancer, he's not a higher up. He's not some weird top secret clearance guy that's been there for 30 years. He's a freelance psychiatrist that's just
Yeah.
kind of crazy.
Right.
And there's some people who have come forward with their MK Ultra stories. Like one guy who was experimented on in the sleep room has said, I guess the process was they told him for 23 days straight, you killed your mom. You killed your mom. Just in his head. He's in a coma, and this is what they're piping into his head. You killed your own mother. He comes out, he's killed his own mother.
Yeah, he
he's
believes
turning
it.
himself in. He's killed his mother. And his mom's like, I'm literally right here. And he's like, killed you.
Well,
You-
no, you're good.
no. I was just like, I just picture it like, but I am your mom, but you're not my mom.
Well, he believes he killed her.
Yeah.
What do you do at that point? It's your brain fractures.
Yeah.
Like, but I mean, Jolly West he even had stories where you could convince someone through hypnosis, and he was a big believer in sodium pentothal, which is truth serum. So as best as I can tell, the way sodium pentothal works is it basically shuts down the creative center of your brain, and lies are just creations.
Yeah.
You just make them up.
Yeah.
So if you can't do that, everything's truth. Mm-hmm. So basically, I think what he was doing was shutting off their creative center and then telling them what happened.
Yeah.
If they can't make up a lie, then that has to be the truth.
Mm-hmm.
So he was a big believer in hypnosis, sodium pentothal, LSD, barbiturates, psilocybin. Magic mushrooms, they tried a lot, but they never had, as best as any of the research shows, any controllable. It never got as deep as like LSD and sodium pentothal. It was just cool. That guy's tripping balls. He's done after 4 hours, but
Right.
we can't work with that.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing to be done with that. He's just nuts for a while. Like, okay. So they tried with psilocybin for a while. I mean, they kept trying to make it work. Methamphetamines, speed, everything they
Yeah.
could to alter your body chemistry to see if they could change it. Mm-hmm. And those were the ones, I mean, LSD and the sodium pentothal were their main chemicals because they worked. That's the
Right.
thing.
I
Those are
think
the
of
ones
it
that,
like your brain is an organic computer. So you just have to figure out how to partition the hard drive.
sure. Well,
So
they,
I'm
and they were
gonna
trying
rerun
to.
these wires.
Well, they were just erasing it and starting over.
Yeah.
And he even Jolly West even
and then reboot you as a different person.
yeah, with whatever memories I want you to have.
Do you know that women in the Middle Ages between 45 and say, I think 62 will go through a period where you will, and it's all women, we go through a thing where you'll just, transient memory loss, where you'll just suddenly have amnesia, transient amnesia. You won't remember anything, and the doctors tell you it's just your brain rebooting. And you reboot, and you're a little bit different. It's like a midlife crisis type thing.
Huh.
Isn't that strange?
That is.
A lady at work just went through that, and she was like, it's going to happen to you too. And I'm like, I go through this every day. I can't remember jack
My
shit.
memory's already shot to hell.
She couldn't remember her name, where she worked. And so her husband's like, oh my God. And they're like, oh, it's transient amnesia. She'll be fine in 3 days.
Yeah, that's terrifying. That should not be a
Yeah.
common thing.
And then you reboot, and her doctor literally told her, your brain will reboot. And I pictured her, dee-dee-dee-dee.
yeah. That's nuts.
What?
Settings needed to be updated.
Yeah. So can you imagine if they can do this and trigger it when at will to reboot you as a different person?
So imagine they can do this in 52.
Yeah.
1952.
What can they do now?
Absolutely.
Maybe this is an outcome of that.
Well, maybe they've been able, and that maybe, I don't know. We won't know for another 50, 60 years what they can do now. We're so far behind on public knowledge what the government's actual capabilities are. Maybe they've gotten it down to not just science, but art. Maybe they know they can basically shut down your brain in, it takes 20 minutes and reboot it however they want the next 3 hours. You're talking a 4-hour time span where somebody could be a completely different human being. That's really terrifying and probably pretty close to accurate.
Yeah.
Which is the scary part.
We really are just a simulation,
Ah.
a living simulation
Yeah.
at that point.
But even West, he told Sidney Gottlieb that he had figured out how to between hypnosis and sodium pentothal, he could convince somebody that they had been locked up for a year after a few days. Mm-hmm. And then his idea was that if they had information that they couldn't give if it was relevant to a war effort or whatever, if you've convinced them it's been 5 years, their information is no longer relevant. So they can tell you whatever they need to tell you that you don't know. Even if it's only been 3 days, that's crazy to me that you can convince somebody it's been a year after 3 days. Mm-hmm. But again, that's what they were. That's the whole goal.
A year's worth of memories and ideas.
I don't know if it's a year's worth. I think maybe they were blanking them out. Like if sodium pentothal and LSD work the way they're saying they work, and it may have been a conjunction of the two, and you just tell them, hey, it's been 9 months. And they just don't have anything in between. They're just in a daze. They're like, holy God, it's been 9 months.
Like a sensory deprivation. I had no idea.
Yeah. And they really believe you, then whatever information they had that was important that week isn't important anymore. Mm-hmm. But it goes the other way, too. If you can convince them it's been a year, you can convince them maybe you need to go stab somebody.
Right.
Like, if those are the real memories they have, that it's been a year.
This person is responsible for... another thing in the sleep room they would tell people. So they would interview you and say, Becky, they had you admit that, you know what, Angie really pisses me off when she rages at video games, and I'm sick of it. She's always undermining me. And then they played that in your head over and over. Your own words reinforcing how much you hated me.
Yeah.
And you'd come out, and I fucking hate you.
Yeah. You wouldn't want anything to do with her.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, yeah. Oh God! Thinking about that in that sense is like the.
No, Becky's like, I'm already at that point.
No. It's like, are you talking about like us playing Valorant every day? Like, no, I'm just kidding. But it's scary because it's like how easy of what you can do, like how you can manipulate people. It's how quickly you can do it.
I don't think it's easy, but I think they probably have it down to where
a science.
Yes, they know what they're doing really quickly, which is. It's terrifying because, again, when you look at stuff that comes to light like Epstein, which is people for years were talking about it and saying what a huge conspiracy it was.
Yeah.
These elites are having sex with minors, and then all this comes out, and you're like, Jesus, how many of these people have they got to? I mean, if Epstein's Island was basically a CIA front, what if they're down there waiting on them? Mm-hmm. And they could be drugging them mm-hmm. and telling them whatever the hell they want to tell them and getting whatever secrets they want. Or, I mean, there's no end to it. There's no way to ever figure out, unless you're inside, what they know, who did what. I mean, it's just this insane. It's a puzzle and it's fun, but it's really terrifying. That's who Jolly West is. He's completely unbridled. He can do whatever he wants to whomever he wants with no repercussions. And whomever means, like I said, it's the military, it's other CIA operatives, mm-hmm. it's literally students, mental patients.
Well, you're looking at like
kids.
People who are famous now, like Ted Kaczynski or Charles Manson. These are people that...
Yeah, but they weren't then.
Right.
But you would think maybe when Gottlieb was talking to him, it was like, maybe leave our people alone. Maybe don't drug our people.
Right.
But there was none of that. It was whoever you need to do this to, do it to.
Mm-hmm. Right.
There was no repercussions, nothing.
Right.
And to the point of where West even claimed he didn't work for MKUltra for years until the paperwork, a lot of it came out of the University of Oklahoma, where his correspondence back and forth with Cindy Gottlieb. That's how he got caught and proven that he was with MKUltra.
Could it be that did he ever admit to it, or could it be that he thought he was working on something else?
He was dead before these were released, and he was corresponding with like I said, he was corresponding with Sidney Gottlieb and specifically telling him we need to take this out into the field and try it on unwitting suspects and asking for permission.
Oh, my God.
It wasn't that he didn't know. He 100% did this.
Yeah.
He was asking for the CIA's blessing to do this, and they gave it to him.
Oh, my God.
That's the kind of person this guy is. We are going to talk about Jimmy Shaver. Jimmy Shaver, it's July 4th, 1954. Mm-hmm. Jimmy Shaver is in Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio. He is an airman. He's on his second marriage, super cool dude, apparently not violent, super calm. His only issue is he has migraines. He has migraines so bad that when he feels one coming on, he dunks his head into a bucket of ice water to calm it down. It's the 50s.
Yeah.
You can't go take
The
just
migraine medicine
And
don't
that's still
exist.
an old
Yeah.
folks remedy is put your feet in cold water
Yes.
and your head will feel better.
Absolutely. It was, I mean, this is after they had outlawed cocaine and headache remedies, which apparently worked, but before we actually had reasonable medications.
Yeah.
So, this was his only solution. Dunk your head in cold water, let it ride. His family, and this is all hearsay, because the records of this don't exist anymore, they have been, I say expunged, but they were actually just missing. They've been missing since the day after what we're about to talk about happened. His family says that at Lackland, he was going through experiments to handle his migraines. The guy who was running these experiments was Jolly West. So,
Wow. Okay.
yeah. So this is where we're at with that. There's a couple parents. Their last names? Hortons. Mr. and Miss Horton.
Did they hear a who?
Yeah. It is midnight. They are burning up. Apparently the AC's out, I believe, is what happened. They decide to go to a bar and drink. They take their 2 children with them, the 3-year-old Sherry Jo and her brother who is 5.
Classy.
They take them to a bar at midnight,
Yeah.
tell them to play in the parking lot.
Oh.
Oh, this is like
It's
the 50s.
Again, it sounds crazy, but this is
But-
Leave It to Beaver time.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
this is where we're
Well,
at.
kids
probably
would even
left-
go into a bar sometimes
Yeah.
with their
Yeah.
parents.
But
they
it-
just leave the doors unlocked. We'll be
Yeah.
back.
Absolutely. It's I mean, this is...
I think of it like a pub. They
Yeah.
serve food and alcohol,
Yeah.
and your kids were there.
But they were just trying to get cool. Apparently, they
Yeah.
were burning up and were just like, let's
Yeah.
get the hell out of the house. Because, again, this is Texas in July
Yeah.
in the 50s.
100 degrees outside.
It's 120 in the
Dry,
house.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so they couldn't sleep, took the kids to the bar, told them to play in the driveway or the parking lot. It sounds crazy now. Again, this is the 50s, man.
Yeah.
People didn't lock their door. This was Leave It to Beaver.
Yeah.
Father Knows Best. All the... this was America for most people. Like, nothing bad happened, really. And they're not on the base, but they're really
They're
close to
close.
it.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen near a military base in the
Right.
50s? Like, nothing. Jimmy Shaver and one of his buddies had been there drinking earlier that night. They leave hour before the Hortons get there and go home. The Hortons come out after about an hour, look for their kids. They can't find them.
Jeez.
Oh,
They
shit.
find the son, not the daughter. The 5-year-old, not the 3-year-old. The daughter's missing.
Right.
They launch a search. And this is where it gets weird again, there are 2 stories. One is 2 airmen find Mr. Shaver coming out of, there's a quarry nearby. 2 airmen find him stumbling out of the rock quarry while searching for her.
Yeah.
The other story is the airmen were called and told where to find him. It's hazy.
And
I
they
don't
say
know
when
which
he
one to
came
believe.
stumbling out, he had no recollection.
Yeah, we're gonna get at all that,
Mhm.
but that's where it first starts. Is they find he's a 3/4 of a mile away, coming out of a rock quarry. Either they find him accidentally, just looking for the girl, or they're called and told where to find him.
And you
It's-
gotta think if they're called, this isn't like flip a cell phone,
Yeah.
911. Hey, I think I saw this guy.
well, not only that, but it was 2 airmen that found him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These are 2 military guys that may have got a call on a CB and told where to find him.
Yeah.
If they were called, that's probably how it happened. It was a
Yeah.
walkie or a CB. They didn't have cell phones, and they're not on base, so it's not like you
Right.
can just radio the base. So if this call really came through, it came from someone that knew what happened. That's 1. 2, if they just happened upon him, it's really damn lucky. It's one of the 2. Jimmy Shaver comes stumbling out of the underbrush and is cut up, bruised, covered in blood. Confused, doesn't know where he's at, doesn't know who he is. Just has no recollection of anything. The little girl's panties are found on his rearview mirror.
Oh my
Ugh.
Or
God.
side view mirror of his car.
Jesus
covered in blood.
Christ.
Which is terrifying,
Yeah.
but also a really good way to set somebody up if you're trying to
Yeah.
set somebody up.
Yeah.
Like, that is, if you're going to plant evidence,
That's a good plan.
that's a damn good way to do it. Be like,
Yeah.
oh, we found her panties. The girl's found. She has been raped and murdered, beat to death. She's shredded.
Fuck.
Yeah, brutally, like
Yeah.
horrifically.
Yeah, he destroys
Smashed
her.
head, yeah.
So what we have here is an airman who has no recollection of what has happened, doesn't know what he's supposedly done, doesn't know who he is, being arrested on what looks like ironclad 100% evidence. I mean, there is no doubt.
Yeah.
Her panties are on his side view mirror of his
He's
car.
covered in her blood.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the arresting officers, they arrest him. They say he is not drunk. He's confused. He's not high. He just doesn't know anything.
Yeah.
They take him to, I guess, the San Antonio prison or whatever Texas town this bar was in. They take him to the jail. 30 minutes later, cops from another precinct call the prison and say that the military's coming to arrest him. They're coming to get him.
Okay.
pretty quick.
Yeah.
For a
Yeah.
story at 1 o'clock in the morning
Yeah.
in
It-
1954.
Especially in the military courts. If you're arrested in civilian courts, you have to follow that through, and
That's
then
what I
the
was.
military takes
Well, that's
care
what
of
I was
it.
about to say. Is if he wasn't like this didn't occur on a military base.
It did not.
Yeah, it
Right.
doesn't technically. The military just doesn't take over. You have to follow it through
Right.
unless you file
But
certain
they
things
did
to get
this
through
time.
it.
Well, again, this is the mid-50s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If the Air Force calls the local police Bubba jurisdiction and say,
Yeah.
we're coming to get him,
Yeah.
Right.
they're letting him go.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
not gonna
Well, they're
fight
not
him.
going to
Yeah,
argue
y'all
about
take
it.
care of
Yeah,
it.
okay, well, I'm glad you guys come and got him because we don't want to deal with this.
Yeah.
The next morning, he's being held, they bring in his wife. He doesn't recognize his wife. He has no idea who his wife is. No clue whatsoever. He doesn't remember anything about this at all. Dead girl, he's covered in her blood. Nothing. Jolly West gets involved as his psychiatrist to see if he was sane during the commission of this crime.
Right. Oh God.
Yes. He has 3 separate, they're called like interview processes with him. 2 of them are recorded, the first one and the last one. The first one he's asking him, Jimmy, did you do this? Nothing. And he's like, what are you talking about? What did I do? So we're dealing with a nonviolent man who had migraines and was under some sort of military experiment that Jolly West was involved with that has apparently killed a small child with no knowledge, no memory, no nothing. The second session with Jolly West is not recorded at all.
So
And
there's
if it
no
is, you can't
evidence.
find it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, supposedly Jolly just cut off the camera. That's the story. Is he just didn't record it at all,
Yeah.
so no one could see it. The third one, when they open it back up, Jimmy Shaver is crying and saying, "I did it."
Ooh.
And isn't the first and third recordings missing now as well?
They are,
Yeah.
but this is from the other doctors who worked on the case and trial.
Yeah.
That-
So we can't even review it and like get an idea of
We have to go from even the other doctors who didn't have access to the second one.
Right.
Jimmy Shaver says, "I did it. I'm sorry. I'm crying. Blah blah blah." Jolly goes on trial, says yes, he was sane. Yes, he did it during the trial. There's a couple other doctors that are associated with Jolly that are working the case. It's ironclad.
Yeah.
We've got our little girl's panties. He's covered in blood. She's been beat to death. He admits he did it. That's case closed. It gets weird when one of the other doctors, they asked, "How did you get involved with Jimmy Shaver?" He's like, "Oh, Jolly West called us." He called an hour after it happened and said, "We need to get..." And not an hour after he was arrested. I mean, an hour after the murder occurred
Right.
Jesus.
to let him know that, hey, this happened. We need to get down there. Because he's still technically housed at the University of Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. But he's driving back and forth or whatever.
Yeah.
Jolly admits that he had used sodium pentothal to bring out the truth in Jimmy Shaver. What the other doctors found out later, and I think the other doctor's name was Mr. Fisher, what he found out later was that he had also put him under hypnosis before using sodium pentothal and while not recording it.
Oh.
Which is 100% against every guideline they have. It is not something you do. You don't
Right.
hypnotize somebody so they are susceptible and then give them something where they can't create memories.
Right.
The only thing Jimmy Shaver remembers, he said there was a long-haired blonde man with tattoos that was actually killing the girl. And that's kind of all he remembers. But after the sodium pentothal hypnosis, he says, "I did it, pled guilty, went to court, was executed by the state of Texas." He's like, "Well, clearly I've done this,
Right.
and guess I gotta die." He blamed it on...
Yeah.
He said he was sexually assaulted by his cousin when he was younger. Her name was Beth. And that was the excuse he gave for why he apparently murdered a 3-year-old.
And think about it. If I have a blacked out period where I don't know, but I'm covered in blood and somebody's, panties are in my car and I'm covered in scratches, I'm going to be pretty sure
You
I
can
did
make
it. Fucking kill me, I deserve it.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where he was at. And again, this is the 50s, and he's an airman with the Air Force. If this Air Force doctor is telling him, "You killed this little girl while you were blacked out," he's going to be like, "Oh, shit, all the evidence points to me doing it. I guess
Yeah.
I did it."
Guess I did it.
Yeah, you're gonna
And
connect
if
the dots.
they implanted the memory that he did it, he's screwed.
Yeah, he's fucked.
Even if he has a disjointed memory of someone else,
Yeah.
you still remember yourself doing
Yeah.
it.
You would think. But again, we're dealing with people that can, if not control your mind, at least alter it to the point where you're not sure what's real anymore.
I read this one conspiracy theory that says, back before MK Ultra, there was artichoke.
Yeah.
I may have that wrong, but they were doing with the Navy electromagnetic impulses on monkeys, and they were successful. So I'm pretty sure was he one of those test subjects where because what it does is it fries your brain.
Yeah.
Like literally like cooking a hot dog on a grill.
So with him, since he was in the Air Force and not in the Navy, and probably not out at sea or anywhere near it, because again, he was at Lackland,
Yeah.
not really near the ocean. Probably not. But they may have been doing this with every branch of the military.
Yeah.
They may have just been like, all right,
And
this
just
one's
targeted.
this one's for the Navy, this one's for the Army, this is for the Air Force, this is for the Marines, this is for the Coast Guard. Let's see what happens. Because you have, regardless of how many different people tell you which each branch is different, the kind of people that joined up, especially back then, were all pretty similar. They had that same mindset, which is fine. Like, that's cool. But it gives you a really good control group of people that have the same basic mindset and same allegiance to a country to experiment on. Mm-hmm. A and B are basically the same person. Who cares if they're in the Navy or the Air Force?
Yeah.
Let's try a different experiment. Let's see what happens here versus here. And that may be the route they took.
Oh, yeah.
Because you
Good
do
point.
have a controlled group that is, especially then, really similar.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to... And again, this is the mid-50s, probably before they started dragging people off the street.
Yeah.
You have a good control group that no one can say anything about. So with Jimmy Shaver, who was never violent before that and never violent after. It was just that one episode.
Which is what MK Ultra stated.
Well, their goal the
Their
whole
goal
time.
was, can we take a nonviolent person and have them do something horrific? Not just like, boom, I got mad.
Yeah.
I'm going to pile drive Chris if I can.
Let's say, I think there are three possible scenarios here with Mr. Shaver. One, he did it, which I don't think anybody believes, from his family to anyone that reads the stories. Like,
Yeah.
this
I don't
dude
buy
didn't
it.
do this.
No.
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason, there's no rhyme. Something else happened.
Especially since Jolly West is saying, he's perfectly sane. Like, you're not even blaming it on a psychotic snap from the migraines.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Just, I did it.
Yeah.
So we have, one, he did it, which I don't think anybody believes. Two, he was forced to do it via whatever experiments they were doing on him at Lackland, and they're like, maybe you should go kill a small child. Which, I mean, if that's their goal, to turn a nonviolent person violent, then
There you go.
Sure, they did it. Or three, he didn't do it, and the blonde man with tattoos actually did do it, and their real experiment was to see if they could impart false memories. Can you make someone believe they did something horrific
the one I
when they
think.
never did?
And that's the one I believe happened here.
I think it is. I think they tried to erase whoever that was there did it, and implant the fact that you did it.
They probably drugged him at the bar, slipped something in his drink,
Maybe.
like a Rohypnol to take him out there.
I remember he had left an hour before the Hortons even showed up,
Right.
and not drunk. Even when they found him, not drunk. They said he was dazed and out of it, but not drunk or high, just no memory. So
Which sounds like the date rape drug.
yeah, Rohypnol.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, again, it's just really weird that Jolly West is involved with that. Doing experiments at Lackland on an Air Force base.
And before he was even arrested, right? This is just an hour after the incident, like when he's...
The timing
been
is,
picked
it's
up?
either as soon as he's picked up or right before. And with the call going to the two airmen before, I wonder if it was him. I wonder if he didn't get the whole ball started, because he knew what would have been going on. It was his
Right.
experiment.
Yeah.
You'd be like, hey, go get your buddy.
Yeah. If old Blondie came out of the woods and called him and was like, hey, we're done here.
Come pick up dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he tells him where to go find him at the quarry.
No.
God, can you imagine how evil that guy is? Or maybe he was under...
Again, yeah, it's
Just
there's
don't know.
no way to tell if it's control or pure evil. But Jimmy Shaver is basically the first case for MK Ultra working, which even in a later paper, Jolly West writes, at an undisclosed army base or undisclosed military base, we had a military personnel who this worked on against his will. He doesn't name the base or the person, and when they're looking for the experiments that Jimmy Shaver was worked on, his family knew he was going for experimentals for his migraines. They were doing experiments on to see if they could control them, which God knows that was probably the LSD experiments and the MK Ultra stuff was sick people.
Right.
That was part of their goal, was
Right.
to take sick people and
And if you
fuck
think
with them.
this is a stretch, they would tell people they were looking for a cure for the common cold and expose them to biological weapons. So
I mean, you're talking the Tuskegee experiments that happened.
Man.
These are real things that our government
Yeah.
did. So when they went to pull the files for Jimmy Shaver, and this was in 55, I mean, this was during the trial to see what had happened, what he had been exposed to. All the files were there except for the last names SA through ST. It's not like they were erased. They just were gone and have never been recovered. So probably burned.
Yeah.
I mean,
Or shredded or something.
I'm not sure how much they shredded back then when you could just start a fire.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Especially since shredded documents can now
Be put
kinda
back together
Yeah.
really well. You just scan
Yeah.
them and it'll work.
And then the computer's like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just puts them together. But he is the first reasonable case for an MK Ultra experiment working as exactly the way they wanted it to. Either A1, a nonviolent person, killed a small child and raped her, or A2, he didn't do that but confessed to it against his memories.
What he remembered.
Yeah. He was told he did it and then was like, yep, that was me. And in either
which
scenario...
we know they had done that successfully.
Absolutely.
Of the other people
The
who come
POWs.
out. Yeah.
And I even wonder about them. How many of them realized what was happening because they had been prisoners of war? And I'm sure even the Koreans had tortured them a while and done shit. I wonder how many of them realized that if I admit that we didn't do this, I can go home. Mm-hmm. How many of them actually just did that? Which is why I wish I knew their names.
So you could just look them up.
Yeah, I mean, it's been, 70 years since the Korean War, so they're not just going to admit it freely.
Right.
But maybe one of them did.
Yeah.
I mean, on their deathbed, a lot of people make a lot of weird confessions that you want to hear. So Jimmy Shaver being the first probable active in the field MK Ultra assassin, really. I mean,
Yeah.
that's terrifying in 54.
And
Like,
if you think that it was a little 3-year-old, and then you say, well, if we can get him to do this, we can easily get him to kill an enemy.
well,
of
I
the
think
state.
that's part of it, is to see, can we either convince him to do something that is horrific, or can we get him to admit to doing something that was
Yeah.
horrific and take the fall for
Right.
it? Because even at his trial, Dr. West came out and advocated against a death penalty. He's like, please don't kill him. So it's either I know he didn't do it, or we made him do it.
Right.
And this is a guy that fought in World War II.
And I want to know what impact it's going to have down the road. That's what I think.
Yeah.
More so, I want to view my test subject.
And
What
that-
impact is it going to have on his life?
10 years from now, is he going to
Yeah.
have a psychological break
That's
again?
right. Where
Is it-
he remembers and he
Yeah.
just goes nuts so bonko because he has 2 different set of memories.
Yes.
Well, and on the flip side, though, it is interesting that he did want not for him to have the death penalty, because I would think at some point maybe he would be worried. Okay, let's say 10, 15 years from now, he suddenly remembers, oh, this is what, like, his brain resets.
Yeah.
Yeah, but who would believe it?
Not only
Yeah.
that,
True.
but this was the 50s. I don't think they dilly-dallied with the death penalty so
No,
much.
it's-
But yeah, there was no diddle. Yeah,
I think they might have been like, yep, guilty.
Now,
He dies in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a death penalty in Texas in the mid-50s. I don't know
And
exactly
you raped and murdered
Yeah.
a
a
3-year-old
3-year-old.
that
yeah.
you admit to. Like,
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. Like, if he didn't get the death penalty, he'd just be sitting there in life for the rest of his life. Like,
Well, again-
at some point, maybe something would flip in his head. Like,
If-
oh my god,
if he doesn't get the death penalty, Jolly West can just have him removed.
Yep.
true.
Just pulled back into whatever.
Absolutely,
Again,
that's true.
he's got not infinite power, but probably as
Pretty
close
much.
as you can get being a civilian.
Quick question: was it back then? Were they still doing hangings, or was it the chair in Texas?
the
It was
chair.
electricity.
Okay,
All
no,
sparky.
yeah. No, because I was gonna say, if they, they fucking put him in the chair and stuff. Is there a way that Jolly West gets access to the corpse to fucking look over it and look and see what happens in the brain?
I don't think
Or
he
no.
cared so much about the... I don't think Jolly West cared about the biology so much
Gotcha.
as the actual electrical impulses, synapses, all that stuff.
Gotcha.
I think he cared about the actual...
Behavioral.
Yes, modification. If we can modify their behavior to make them exactly what they're not, let's do that. And I think he figured out how to do it, because this is the first time I can find it happening is with Jimmy Shaver, but it sure as hell ain't the last.
No.
It happens again and again and again, and almost every time Jolly West is involved.
Well, and you got to think, like, this guy is like a prominent member of the military.
Yes.
So,
Well, at this point, he's not in the military anymore.
well, no, but what I'm saying is, like, for somebody like that who is somebody who's prominent, who they could have been doing it on, homeless people,
Whoever.
just random people who have these horrific murders, but are very underreported. Like, who's going to be thinking to look at that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I look at it now like I look at the people that are killed in association, that are associated with some sort of politician or a judge or whatever, and I just wonder. Because I know these things, I wonder. Like, oh man, what was the kid's name in D.C. that got shot in the back for the robbery?
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. I don't remember the kid's name. But
I don't remember his name.
And that was during the whole WikiLeaks thing. I
Mm-hmm.
wonder about the Epstein, the judge that's doing the Epstein Deutsche Bank thing, that her son and husband got
yeah.
shot.
Yeah.
And the guy turned himself in and was like, nope, I wanted to do it. And it's like,
It's
what?
like, did you though?
Yeah.
What? Like, I wonder how many of these things that happen are
Correlated.
Well, and how many of the mass shootings? Because some of those people walk away and like, I don't know why I did it.
Yeah.
I felt compelled to do it.
Yeah, I had to do it.
And it's like I had to, and that's what triggers me is when somebody says I had to, not I wanted to.
Yeah.
Or this was right, but I had to.
Yeah, I think it's different than...
Why'd you have to?
Well, you look at actual psychopaths and sociopaths, and you kind of understand, yeah, Ted Bundy was pretty crazy. Dahmer wanted to eat people. I get it. I mean, I don't understand it, but I at least kind of get why these things happened. When you look at the mass shootings, like the Las Vegas shooting,
Yeah.
I don't understand.
There was no explanation for why he did that.
There still isn't an explanation. There's no explanation how he got the guns up there. I mean, there's none of it. It's all just been kind of forgotten because of the news cycle. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
We need answers here.
This should have been one of the biggest stories of the decade, and it's not even a Cliff's Note at this point. And there's no way, like, there's the one video of him going in or whatever, going to the
Yeah.
elevator. I've been to casinos in Vegas. I promise there's more than one camera.
Yes.
Yeah.
There are
Guaranteed.
thousands of them everywhere. The only place there probably aren't cameras are your room and the bathroom.
Yeah.
And I say probably because I
Yeah.
don't
Right.
know.
Exactly.
I know everywhere else does.
Yeah.
So we're missing a huge piece of the puzzle, and who has the power to do that? Like,
Government.
I don't think the casino cares one way or the other. They probably want the
No.
truth out there and be like,
Yeah.
look, this jackass brought a bunch of guns and shot some people. We didn't know.
Like, it's
We
not
just-
our fault.
Yeah, he had a
Yeah.
bellhop help him. No
Yeah.
one knew.
Yeah.
But there's not even that.
No, there's nothing.
There's nothing, and it's just
Well,
like...
and everything you look at it seems so well coordinated at the same time. Like, yeah, he brought all this stuff in, but if I'm doing what I'm doing, the way they say his hotel room was set up, the
Everything.
way everything was just so planned, like, that's not one person doing
No.
that.
I say it could be.
Yeah.
But you'd have to be really, really well trained.
Yeah.
Right.
And
And when they go
I
to
don't
your
think
house,
that
they're
dude
gonna find
was.
something.
Yeah.
They're gonna find a trail because you have to research
Well,
that.
this dude had an arsenal. It's not like he
Yeah.
went up there with like one high-powered, like a 50 with a
Yeah.
scope on it, and
He
was
was
just kind of
ready
shooting
to,
people.
yeah.
He was just unloading massive amounts of rounds into a crowd for, and again, this is where my mind goes because I'm crazy. Somebody in that crowd needed to be shot, but they didn't want it to look like an assassination, whoever
Yeah.
they are. So you just shoot a bunch of people.
Yeah.
You make it look like it's massive versus one person dying. And I don't know if it was, again, this is just my own opinion on it, that this is what I think happened. I think somebody in that crowd had to be shot. I don't know who. I don't know why. It may have been a leaker. It may have been somebody that had knowledge that was not supposed to be public, that was going public. I don't know. But that's the only thing that makes sense to me. Not, I'm perfectly fine my entire life, and then I go crazy and decide to shoot up a
Yeah.
country concert. Like,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Of all the places.
who gives a shit?
Yeah.
I remember thinking, whose concert?
Yeah.
Like what?
Who was it? Tim McGraw or somebody?
Uh,
Florida. It was someone bigger. I
It was-
think.
it was a big country music.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
dude.
it was like a festival,
Yeah.
like a country
Yeah.
music
Yeah.
festival out there. But even
But you're
then,
thinking
like,
these are like your pro-gun,
Yeah.
pro,
Yeah.
like, rights,
And he
Second
was lined up
Amendments.
directly with the exit.
Yeah.
He knew
Yeah.
who he was shooting
Yeah.
at.
that's what I think somebody in that crowd needed to be
Silence.
quieted,
Yeah.
and the rest of them were just
Well, one of the
sucks to be
survivors
near
was
'em.
talking about how he moved where he was shooting like he was
yeah,
following somebody.
Tracking.
Yeah.
It went from here to the parking lot
yeah,
where they thought
tracking
they
them.
were safe. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the one I'm like, I don't. And again, I know it's not MK Ultra and hasn't been since '64 when they switched it or whatever.
But it's something.
There's probably a working name for it, but I doubt there is a paper trail anymore. I think the
No.
government has learned from their mistakes, and it's probably all. I mean, basically like the Snapchat technology.
Yeah.
You get your message, it deletes.
Yeah.
And if we see you screenshot it,
You're dead.
you're deleted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You better remember this shit the first time we show you.
Yeah.
Which was also part of the MK Ultra stated goals, was to have basically a complete memory of everything you see. That's
Right.
what they wanted. They wanted you to have that 360 panoramic. I know everything I look
Eidetic
at.
memory.
Yeah, just and that they may have done that. They may have been able to open up the halls of memory for people to where when you see something, you know it.
And if you're listening and you're thinking, oh, but there was media coverage, there was very little.
Yeah.
And also think about, like, there was land hurricanes in Iowa, and you don't hear about it. Meanwhile, 10 million acres of crops are destroyed?
Yep.
That we are in a crisis. A crisis, and nobody even knows about it.
Well, it's the
And it's like-
it's a 24-hour news cycle. Everybody wants
Yeah.
to argue over Biden or Trump, and I get it if you're super pro one or anti the other. That's your thing, but I mean, we've had 300 years of these same assholes.
Yeah.
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 I don't focus on that because I don't think they're that different anymore.
You would have to change the very grounds of
Yes,
our
everything.
government
I think
to
we're
change anything.
Specifically, and I don't know if it's come about because of purpose or just as a sick joke, not paying attention to the things we're supposed to be paying attention to, the things that matter. And I don't think Trump versus Biden really matters that much anymore.
Well, and it's always like you want them to focus on this while this is going on in the
and
background.
I think it's gotten to the part of where it's teams.
Yeah.
I really want my team to win so I can feel good versus I don't want their team to win so I can feel
Right.
good.
Yeah.
I don't think any of us feel good at all, and I don't think we have for years because we've been playing this stupid game
Yeah.
and not paying attention to the things that are important.
Mm-hmm. Because it's civilians versus civilians. It's people versus people instead of. I don't even think it should be people versus the government, but we should be watching the government, not each other.
We should hold them responsible.
Right.
Yeah. The
But
thing is, there
instead,
is
we're
no
so
accountability.
focused on a Republican one and not a Democrat.
Yeah.
What happened to voting for who you think is better?
Yeah. Follow your conscience.
Like moderate Republicans just don't even exist anymore. Like we're a dying breed, or
Well,
just moderates in general.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is there is no because if you try to claim to be moderate, someone will tell you that you're wasting your vote.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they're so caught up in the team politics. And if I get it, man, I understand both sides of it. If you're pro Trump or if you're pro Biden or pro Kamala Harris, I 100% understand that. I don't think it matters anymore. And I think it doesn't matter because you're dealing with people in the government who can be, again, these people can be changed.
Yeah.
I think they all can be changed. I think we're only on one path because that's the only one that can exist anymore.
Yeah.
Unless there's a huge change in the
And then
in
you
the sea
rely
level.
on people to accept it and believe it, which I personally don't think will ever happen. I think if it was stated right now, even if it were Trump came out and said, I just discovered this is happening,
Yeah.
people would still.
So here's what would happen. The right would 100% believe him. The left would 100% say he was lying. It doesn't matter if he's right or wrong.
Yeah, just-
It's that we're
yeah.
past that, and we're so caught up in that we're not holding these people accountable, and that's what scares me.
Well, it's the same thing where they came out and said, we have a ship that was not made on Earth.
Yeah, the
And nobody's
Pentagon.
talking
Yeah.
about it?
The Pentagon admits they have a UFO, and it's not even like page 2 news.
No.
No.
People don't care.
Yeah.
Because they're so caught up in something that I don't think has any actual long-term relevance anymore. Because again, I'm looking at the world now, and it's weird and it's crazy, and people are mad at each other. But we had 8 years of Obama, and then 4 years of Trump, and before that we had Bush, and people have been mad at each other forever. I don't think who sits in charge of the presidency matters as much as
Who put them there?
yes, who controls them.
Yep.
Who's actually behind them, and we're dealing with a CIA operation that is A1. CIA's stated rules say they do not operate domestically. They are not supposed to operate within the borders of the United States of America. They're breaking rule 1 from the jump, so there are no more rules.
Yeah.
There's nothing left. And if they can take somebody and brainwash them and make them say or believe whatever they want, whoever the guy is or the girl is you like, that can happen to. And if their time frame is bumped up to, even if it's 6 hours, that's easy. That's a
Yeah.
night.
Yeah.
If it's, and I mean, you're talking, he did this to Jimmy Shaver in probably 2 hours is what they think
Yeah.
the missing time frame was. 2 hours. I don't know how much their technology's improved over the past 70 years. Probably a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they may be able to do this with, I
A
mean,
fucking pill.
it may be a pill, it may
Yeah.
be a nanobot, an
Yeah.
implant, a microchip,
Yeah.
a subconscious
A flu
idea.
vaccine, like
Yeah, I don't, and no one does. But we have to focus on what we do know.
Yep.
We know Jolly West is involved with Jimmy Shaver. We know he worked with Cindy Gottlieb. We know he worked with MK Ultra. We know he said he could change people's memories. He could erase and implant false ones.
And this guy who has this carte blanche control of this experiment is going to take an interest in this nobody
Yeah,
in Texas?
Absolutely.
No, not, yeah.
I think he got involved. He may have been worried that he may have had a mental break and spilled everything.
Yeah.
And again, he's the only psychiatrist that ever interviewed Jimmy Shaver, even I'm talking from the hours after the murder happened till his death. There was no one else to interview him. It was just Jolly West.
Well, and if you don't know any better, you're just assuming that this guy is on the up and up.
It's the 50s.
Yep.
You believe the guy the government sends to help you is there to help you.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
There's no questioning it.
Yeah, these guys.
I mean,
I didn't.
And I think now, and maybe it's my like optimism in the way everybody thinks now, but I think it's because we do have such access to the internet. I think people would question it in this day and age.
People question everything now because it's not. I don't think it's that we're more or less inclined to believe the government. I think it's because there's so much differentiating information coming out in every direction because information is instant.
Yeah. And going right back to that, talking about that in the 1950s, that was not the case. Your narrative was what was
they
fed
told
to you.
Yep.
Exactly.
And everybody believed that because everything was going
What is
well.
Walter Cronkite telling you?
Yeah. Well, and then again, you have to think this is post-World War II America.
Yeah.
Suburbs are a thing. Everybody's making good money.
Everybody's being taken care of.
Yeah, everybody's moving
Allegedly.
up in the socioeconomic class. Things are affordable. Who's going to question that government?
Yeah.
I mean, think about it right now. If everybody in America started making $25 an hour, and then everything...
That's just the new poverty line.
everything went down 10% in price. Because that's kind of what it was.
Yeah.
Everything was cheaper, but everybody was making more. Who's going to complain?
Right.
Yeah, not me.
Clearly, the government's taking care of it.
Yeah.
Whatever they're doing is working.
Yeah,
let them work.
not the average person.
And that's that's how they felt back then. This was the Leave It to Beaver. Everybody stays home. Jimmy's in school. Mom stays home and cooks and cleans house. Dad has a traveling salesman job. You can afford a 3-story house. No problem.
Yeah.
And that's that world.
Yeah. I mean, even through the Vietnam War, there was such a campaign of rhetoric in favor of it. So when you had people like Farrah Fawcett and what's her face, Jane Fonda, just destroyed because they dared to come out and say something different.
Yeah.
I mean, Jane Fonda admits she probably shouldn't have sat on the North Korean gun.
No kidding.
Yeah,
That was
and
probably a
said
mistake.
what she did, but she said what she wanted to show is that these aren't the horrific monsters that they're making them out to be. We are literally there to basically keep these people down.
Yeah, and it may have been her good intention.
Yeah, but no.
People are physically dying.
Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah, you can't. From that gun you sat on.
Yeah.
And that you ate with those people who had prisoners of war on
In the
site.
camp. Yeah, right
Yeah.
there. And that's the thing is that gun that killed Shelly's mom or son, she doesn't give a shit whether or not you think these people are good or bad.
Yeah.
Her son is dead because of them.
Right.
That's what she knows.
It's all about perspective.
Her
Yeah.
reality is way different than yours, and she doesn't get to go tour POW camps and have dinner.
Exactly. Yeah.
She has to live with the fact that her son or husband no longer exists on this earth forever.
Mm-hmm.
So I get if you're for the peace, I 100% am cool with that. I think there are ways to go about showing it that
Yeah.
aren't
Yeah.
that, because that's
That's extreme.
Well,
Not
it's
obnoxious.
Well, it's a nightmare if you're here and your husband, son, daughter, father is dead because of that.
Right.
You'll never forgive that.
And you're making nice with them.
Yeah.
In a POW camp.
Yeah, as an
Yeah.
American
Now, a lot
celebrity.
of false information came out that the POWs were like, Jane Fonda never said that. She
Yeah.
never did that to us. But
You
is this
can-
a picture we have? So you did.
Well, that and once it starts, you can't stop it.
Right.
No.
That's just
Regardless
the
of what the
rumor mill
truth
is what
is.
it is.
Yeah.
And that's part of the
And
problem.
people like to believe scandal.
Well, they do, and that's part of the problem we have here with MK Ultra is there are very few factual truths, and everything else is rumor.
Yep.
So I'm trying to stick to as much of the here's what I know, here's what is provable, here is what the paperwork shows as I can. But some of it you just can't, there's just no way because it doesn't exist.
Right. And the conspiracies, like,
Oh, they abound.
yeah.
And the people that say they were tested on by MK Ultra versus the people that we're pretty sure were, thousands and thousands and thousands of people claim they were. The people that we can pretty much prove were is a much shorter list, but the ones we know are crazy. It's
Yeah.
still crazy. So I get that some of these people that say they were may have not had psychotic episodes, mental breaks, may not have been trained assassins, whatever. But that was the whole point. They're not just giving you acid to give you a good time. Like, they weren't trying to get you just stoned. They were literally pushing the boundaries of human experience to see if they could change it, alter it, modify your entire behavior. They're not going to let you show up, smoke a little pot, and then go home, and that's
Right.
the end of it. That
No.
was not what they wanted to do. And that's where that's where I kind of draw the line with people that were like, yeah, I took some acid with MK Ultra back in '63. I'm like, no, you didn't. That's not how this worked.
No.
They didn't just hang out with you. That was not their goal. The people that we know are it's all bananas crazy, and even the ones we kind of suspect that show all the symptoms of having been worked on, it's still crazy, and it's just terrifying.
We did have a YouTube comment. It was a guy who lives up by Corpsewood Manor. Said he knew the guys, and he knows the father of the kid who killed him. And said that the guy has a YouTube series where he interviews him. And apparently there might be a little more than what we were thinking about the MK Ultra. Or, like, the guy just not remembering. But, you know, what happened there.
Yeah.
So I've asked for, like, the interviews and the YouTube links.
Oh, that'd be cool.
So we could see it. And he said they come down a lot, but they also come back up.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I'm just curious
Keep an eye
there
out.
because
Yeah.
when you have
Yeah.
somebody who was involved with this with LSD and brought this to rural Mountain, Georgia.
I don't think there was ever. I don't think any of these people were involved with it. I think if
Yeah.
you were, you are.
Yeah.
I don't think they let you out. I think the only
Exactly.
one they let out was that doctor they chucked off the roof.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
that's
oh.
how you
Yeah,
got
they
out.
let
That's
him
how
out
you
by
get out.
falling.
Yeah, I think that was the only way out if you knew about it. You either kept
Yeah.
your mouth shut
Yeah.
or they chucked you off
Because
a
what
roof.
strikes me about the Corpsewood is how when people would come for his orgy and drug parties, they had to specifically write what they liked.
Yeah.
Is it because you wanted to try and change them? And he did take these people who weren't homosexual, and I don't know. It was just unusual to me.
Sure.
So I want to hear these interviews.
And it may have been a separate. It may have been a honeypot / behavioral modification.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, it
You
may
just
have been
never
the
know.
same
That
thing.
backfired. Because his last
Yeah.
words were, "I asked for this."
This, yeah.
Like, that's just always stuck with me.
Yeah.
What did you ask for?
Yeah, I mean, it may have been both. I mean, the thing is, even out in when Jolly West makes it out to San Francisco to the Haight-Ashbury, it wasn't just behavioral modification. It was still trying to find out their secrets.
Yeah.
His big thing was, can I get them to tell me something they don't want to tell me?
Right.
And that may have been with this, and they did it all
Yeah.
over. I mean, it wasn't like it was just in San Francisco from '68 to '71.
Yeah.
It was all over the country.
But like you
in
said,
every-
control groups in different
Yeah,
places.
to test to see what the differences are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To see what works better, and if Jolly West had actually developed the way to implant and remove memory, does it only work on certain sectors of people? Mm-hmm. Does it work on women the same way it works on men? Does it work on African Americans the same way it works on white people?
Or people raised in rural Georgia who had this super moral Christian,
Yeah.
background. Does it?
Does it work on them?
Are people just people?
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to find that out, and that's why.
God, don't you want to know the answer?
Yeah.
I feel like I could easily go down this road, but I
Forever.
think I would have empathy, and like you said, I couldn't do it to Bobby.
Yeah, that's the thing is if you look
But
at
test
people.
subject
Bobby, you're just the
Pompadour?
test subject
That's
all the
fine.
time.
I'm used to it.
He's Pompadour.
Yeah,
Yeah,
test
he's
The
subject
code
Pompadour.
Pompadour.
But I always look at that like, if you know the scientific method, you need a control group.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so you find your control groups. You take straight-laced, middle-of-the-road, solid citizen Republicans in the 50s, and you take hippies in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
What can we make them do? Can we make them both violent? Can we take the people that are 100% pro-peace, that are putting flowers in the barrels of guns, can we make them go kill some people?
Yeah.
I bet we can. And can we take a 35-year-old God-fearing Christian man and make him do something so horrendous it is beyond his
Like rape and
ability
murder.
to
Yeah.
ability to comprehend, and then have him admit to doing it?
Yeah. I think it's way easier to turn people violent than to take a violent person and turn them non-violent.
I think it's probably the same.
You
I think
so?
if you can modify their behavior one way, you can modify it the other.
Yeah.
This is a lot.
This is just the first case. There are
I'm going to whip out a Ouija board. Charlie West, are you there?
no kidding. But this is it's more heinous, the act itself with Jimmy Shaver,
Yeah.
but it's not as crazy as some of the other ones get.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
It's more of a violent, but because it is one-on-one with it's a grown man and a 3-year-old girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Versus when you get to Ted Kaczynski bombing places.
Yeah.
We
Right.
have a tendency
Yeah.
to, as human beings, we can understand one-on-one violence versus mass
Right.
trauma. You look at huge mudslides in South America that kill 3,000 people, happens pretty consistently
Yeah.
over
Yeah.
the years. It's not even a blip.
Right.
You hear about a 6-year-old getting shot in Atlanta, And
it's all over the news.
And it has a different visceral effect on you as a person. You focus on it very differently. And it's just because it's one-on-one violence versus... It's hard for us to understand 3,000 people dead at once. It's hard to wrap your head around.
It's how we cope.
Yeah, it's just so you just kind of block it out. You're like, yeah, that sucks. I'm glad I'm not down there.
Yeah.
It's hard to have empathy for all that.
You know what the craziest thing lately, my mind has gone down with MK Ultra, is knowing the experiments they've done on monkeys, and I'm positive they haven't stopped. And then that monkey broke in that lab and stole COVID-19.
Sure.
Come on.
It's possible.
Well, I think especially
Why would a monkey do that?
Trained again.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, Coco could speak sign language. Monkeys
Fluently.
aren't. Monkeys aren't so far down the
evolutionary
chain from us that they can't be taught. And now they think, even over in Africa, monkeys have basically entered, and not necessarily monkeys,
an
apes.
evolution cycle.
Yeah, apes have entered basically the Stone Age. They're hunting with spears and rocks.
Yeah.
That's not super far behind
And you
us.
watch these cute videos. There's this one, this woman has a Mountain Dew in her bag. And then the orangutan knocks on the glass, gets her attention, points at her bag, and is like, I want a drink. And then he directs her to a tiny hole, pour it through here.
Yeah.
And then he drinks it.
He
and she puts it back
understands.
and he's like, no, I want more.
Yeah, I'm not done yet.
Yeah.
Did you think we were done yet?
And you have a banana. Throw it over. And he does, like, throw it over.
Yeah, he understands what he wants and how to get it. And that's, I don't think they're so far behind us. Even, I mean, a lot of people, I mean, I'm not saying we're as stupid as apes or as unsophisticated.
But they're reasoning now.
They're figuring it out. And I think, again, after 100 years of messing with them, maybe we can make them smarter. Maybe we can speed up the way they process and ration things.
Just like something did with us. Let's be honest. Humans in the evolutionary cycle, we were on the way out, and suddenly
we suddenly spiked.
Yeah, something came and helped us out.
I
mean, that's a different...
I have my ideas why that happened,
Okay.
and we can do that one day.
Yeah,
but
we'll
today
do
is
that
not the trip for
episode.
that.
Okay. Hi. Oh my God. This is a lot. It's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
Unpack. Okay. Yay.
Hey. Where can they find
I
MK Ultra
honestly, my
experiments?
brain is literally like completely
Okay,
overwhelmed.
brain.
Yeah. I don't even remember where I'm at. You can find us on Facebook at The Free Rotation Podcast. You can find us on Twitter at The Free Rotation. We're also on YouTube and Twitter at The Free Rotation. And you can find us at Weeby Geeks. Check out all the other great podcasts over at WeebyGeeksPC.com. And you can check out our backlog at TheFreeRotation.com. I'm trying to go through this quickly because my brain is like
Fried.
Yeah.
fried.
Oh, this is nothing.
And Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play,
iTunes.
Stitcher, everywhere, anywhere you can find us. So
Except for SoundCloud.
But yeah, oh my
Remember,
God,
We Be Geeks, be sure to check out their other great podcasts.
I did say that.
Yeah.
The transient memory loss is starting already.
Oh, Jesus. Transient amnesia.
We love y'all. Thanks for listening. Have a good weekend.
Heck yeah.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.